Hello and welcome to the Pirates podcast, to be named later, here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network. My name is Alex Stumpf. His name is Eddie Provident, and this is take two because the first one, my laptop is doing this. Have you ever seen the meme, Eddie, of the guy just shrugging his shoulders and says, "Guess I'll die"?
Yes.
That's my laptop anymore. 85%. It's wonderful. So, yeah, you gotta get a new one soon. So it's. So we're doing this again.
Hey, man. Well, take two. Gives us an opportunity to be better.
Yeah.
Well, we embrace the what I don't know, something Tomlin would say. We embrace something.
We embrace the challenge.
We embrace the challenge, adversity. We embrace discomfort. There it is. We embrace discomfort.
Oh, I live in discomfort. That's why I'm also in the screen here, because the one booth that's open doesn't have working lights, or I can't get the lights to work, or whatever it is. I am on the struggle bus. But
So they really have just turned off the lights at PNC Park.
Yeah.
There's a metaphor in there somewhere, Alex.
Yes, we'll go with that.
Pirates baseball.
Should we turn the lights off on Rowanzi Contreras this year? That is called a.
There it is. That's why this man's a professional.
Yeah. Yes, we'll go with that. Ben Cherington was made available to local media this week. Couple names that popped up: Rowanzi Contreras and Nick Gonzales. I asked about Rowanzi Contreras just to say, hey, are we going to see him in the fall or not? Like, and keep in mind, whenever it comes to pitching, best laid plans of mice and men often go astray because it just takes one guy getting a bump or a bruise at this point in the season. It becomes a season-ending injury, even if it's not actually serious. So,
right.
Keep in mind, this is all with a grain of salt right there. I asked Ben, are they content with him just continuing to focus on himself, try to get better in AAA, or is it, is a major league call-up? I'm going to rattle off the whole quote here a little bit. I think we definitely want him to continue to focus on the things that he can control, and he has been doing that. We still feel it's going in a positive direction. He's been competitive and performing reasonably well. We see a more complete pitcher now than we did early in the season, in terms of the ability to use all the pitches. Now it's just a matter of his performance and opportunity coming together at the same time. Any other pitcher in AAA that's going to drive it. So, and then he talked a little bit about what Quinn Priester did, and just wrapping up a quote here. We felt like Quinn had done the things to earn that call it back up to the majors. That last part, implied. So we'll keep an eye on the rest of the season and see if that opportunity opens up for anyone else, including Rowanzi. So the way I'm interpreting this is it's not really in the cards unless something happens. I mean, that's just my interpretation of it. Conversations I've had independently about Rowanzi Contreras, velocity isn't there. No one really expected 3 weeks in Bradenton he'd be back to throwing 97 again. But the pitches it's a very similar pitch profile besides the velocity. Now,
right.
So like the movement, the spin, the tilt axis, the type of things that you want to. It's just okay. Where's the velo? That's going to have to come this off season. So I can see why they don't want to call him up. If that's the path they do choose because of the velo, I'm still thinking there are some very encouraging signs in that. If they do call him up, it is okay in my mind. Like I would like to see the guy, even if it's just like how he ended 2021, 3 innings, boom.
Yeah, and I think like either way, Alex. Like if they bring him up, I think it's good. I think it's going to be good for his confidence. I think it's good for his psyche to make it back to the big leagues in the same season after what he went through. I also think that there's no reason to rush him. I don't think there's any reason to push this. I don't think there's any reason to put him in any kind of situation that might make him waver in his confidence. There's nothing, we could talk about how mathematically the Pirates aren't out of it. And that's technically true, but there's really nothing to gain from bringing Rowan back up this season as far as the team goes. You're really only looking at what's going to benefit him as an individual and as a player. So I think if the people close to him see fit to bring him up, I'm all for it. I think it's cool. And I think if they decide, no, you know what, let's just keep him down in the minors. Let's let him, work on things. Let's let him, try to build that confidence and then have a whole off season to work on everything to get back for next season. I think that that's a solid game plan as well. I really don't think there's a wrong way to look at this for him right now.
No, I think that's a good way to put it. There is no clear wrong. Like, what the hell are you doing here? I mean, this
Mm-hmm.
year, this has been a tough year. Like, there's no
Yeah.
way to put it. It definitely hit the brakes. From what had been a pretty solid ascent. The last 2 years with the Pirates, and not to just go through the typical, Charrington talking points. Development isn't always linear. Like this, I have reason to believe, again, based off of those conversations I've had, some of it, that I can share, a lot I can't. I have reason to believe that he can bounce back in 2024. The Pirates believe that he can bounce back in 2024 to the
Mm-hmm.
pitcher that we saw, in the first half of 2022. Like, that is the type of guy who, rawness factor in it, but just pure stuff, how approach, that's the type of guy this guy can be. Like, there was obviously some things he had
Yeah.
to mature with. There were some things that he had to grow with, just like every other pitcher in there. But like, I don't think anyone would complain if 2022 Romanzi Contreras walked through that door in 2024.
Not at all. And I think it would be a welcomed addition to that pitching staff.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that I
So,
talked about last week. Whenever I had a pretty legendary brain cramp, and I didn't talk about how Romanzi Contreras factored into this rotation for next year. The front half of the season, this rotation is pretty wide open. I don't see a lot of guys with like Keller, and then second would probably be Oviedo. Like, there's only one guy I think could really write their name in pen for next year. It'd be Keller, and then Oviedo would be like erasable pen, like like
mhm.
really really close to a spot. Contreras has to show something. He has to show a lot this winter. He's got to show, growth, that the velo can come back. The movement, the pitch profile, having that back is really important. I can't stress that enough. That should be like the silver lining of, okay, there's a foundation with all of this.
Mhm.
That's great.
Uh, Another name you mentioned off, I
Yeah.
can't remember if you mentioned it on screen, but you mentioned it off screen for sure. Nick Gonzales. Where are we at
Yes.
with Nick Gonzales?
I'm a little more optimistic here with Nick Gonzalez.
Okay.
Again, I'm going to read off a quote. Similar to Quinn, he went down with some clear targets, and he's worked hard on those, and we've seen some progress that he's going after what we outlined for him. Skip it a little bit for towards the end of the quote. The indie season will come to a close here a little bit sooner than the major league season, so that will come into it. Proud of the work he's done. It being, a decision of whether or not to call him up to the major leagues. Pirates have a couple middle infielders right now that they want to give looks to. I mean, we're talking Peguero, we're talking Alika Williams, who, I mean, that decision goes beyond just, taking a look. It's like, do you roster this guy for next year? I would assume. Jared Chiolo's in
Mhm.
that mix. So I can see the keeping Nick Gonzalez down, but like, whenever the minor league season ends, I think it's one of those things you got to take a look like, yeah, let's see what happens. Because he's hit AAA pitching really well. He's got to hit major league spin. That's the big thing for him. Like, he did not do that first stint in the major leagues, and candidly, he's kind of in a spot right now that he needs to face major league spin. And if he can't hit it,
Yeah.
he either has to learn to, or that's just going to be the book on him. In which case, you still have an answer.
Yeah. I want to see what he has. There's so much potential there, and there's so much, I think, room for growth, and I think he can be such a good part of this baseball team, a productive part of this baseball team. Like you said, man, got to hit major league pitching, and those spin rates, boy, do they jump when you see major league pitchers, and that's you either can or you can't. That's really what it comes down to with Nick Gonzales. So I want to see him have another chance. I think I'd love to see him play this season, even if it's just for a few more games. Selfishly, I know that I'll be covering the Marlins the last 2 games of the season. I'd love to see him. I'd love to get a chance to see him live and in person. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it all comes down to again, the same thing we talked about with Ramsey. How comfortable is the organization with him coming back?
Yeah, we're gonna see. Again, I think it's important for a lot of these young players to not end with that bad taste on the mouth. That's something I talked with Priester about before this last start. Like, hey, how important was it for you to come up? And even though the final results weren't there, like he looked in so much better spirits. He had his fastball again. It was like, okay, that's something you can build off for 2024.
And
That
those
he,
first three in the first 3 innings he pitched against the Nationals the other Wednesday night, he looked. I don't want to say
he
dominant, but he was dealing. He was dealing. He was
was, but
throwing some.
we've seen that a couple times, and we've also seen a couple times
Yeah,
where whenever the ball gets rolling, it just can't stop. It avalanches so fast, and that's something that
yeah.
you got to learn. You got to learn, and I'm not going to throw the guy under the
Yep.
bus for learning at the major leagues.
That comes with experience. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yep.
just what it is. So we'll figure it out. And one more quick thought here before we wrap up this first segment: O'Neill Cruz is coming back as a shortstop. That has been made adamantly clear here. Pagero has
As
played
he should.
Pagero has played a really solid middle infield, and he's shown patience and growth at the plate. And Pagero legitimately might have taken the biggest step, I think, of the major Pirates prospects this year. Like the guys who were considered top 10 coming to the year. I think he took the biggest step because 2022 is not what he wanted from it, and he improved. He did what he had to do.
He's such a likable guy too, man.
Mhm.
Like he's just he
Oh
has
yeah,
a
yeah,
he seems like he is. We talked earlier in the season about losing a guy like Carlos Santana, and what that does to a locker room and a clubhouse. Having a guy like Piguero is one of those, in my opinion, what I've seen of him around this team. He is one of those glue guys.
yeah, definitely. I'm kind of interested with Nick Gonzales. What happens with him in this? I mean, first base is
Mm-hmm.
pretty obviously not full. Uh, Henry Davis is already trying to learn right field. Maybe that Pirates haven't approached first base with him, but I'm just saying it as a possibility. If right field doesn't work out, does Davis go to first base? Does Nick Gonzales go to right field? There's a couple different ways that I look at this. That
Mm-hmm.
Gonzales has to show something real fast because I know he and Piguero are really close friends, and but this is a meritocracy. You got to earn your playing keep, and Piguero definitely has, and O'Neill Cruz is one of the most electrifying players when healthy. If Cruz can show that he can play shortstop, and Piguero continues to show what he's done this year, boy, Gonzalez's path gets a lot harder.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. Want
We're
to take
good.
a quick break and then we'll talk about some more baseball?
Yeah, we're gonna fight, I think, in the second segment.
I'm all about fighting. Let's bring it.
Welcome back to the Pirates
All right.
podcast, to be named later. Eddie, I've gone through co-hosts here. I've had this fight a couple
Okay.
times already. So for people who have listened to the
All
show
right.
a couple years, they're gonna know my takeaway with a lot of this stuff. So for some, this might be the same song and dance. I'm not on board with retiring number 21 yet. And I have softened a bit on this because my main criticism has always been that I don't think Major League Baseball has they fumbled a couple times with 42. And they've
Okay.
chased a buck a couple times. And I've cited this example a lot. A couple years ago, Major League Baseball sent out a tweet sponsored by Budweiser saying this beer's for Jackie. And it's like, well, Jackie Robinson didn't drink, but he was accused of public drunkenness by, an army officer. So it's like this is a really bad taste, tweet, and you're selling out Jackie's legacy, a part of it, for a buck. I really hate that, and I don't want anything to sponge from Roberto Clemente or 21. And again, Pirates have done a lot of questionable things from a from a marketing standpoint, how they run their business. They have done nothing wrong with 21, in my opinion. Everything has been done with the utmost respect and that it deserves.
I would
And
agree with that so far. Yeah.
yeah, and I would like to see Major League Baseball treat 42 the way Pirates treat 21 before they get 21. It's just as simple as that. I don't ever want to see Major League Baseball tweeting out that they won. We're selling off a little bit of Clemente's legacy here, so we could, appease FedEx or something like that. Just something ridiculous, for a sponsor. So Major League Baseball has gotten better with the Jackie Robinson days of late. They're trending in the right direction, but first of all, I don't think 21 being retired is going to have any sort of reasonable discussion
Mm-hmm.
of being retired until Rachel Robinson passes. But even whatever it does, I'm still kind of pumping the brakes on this.
So I understand where you're coming from, and I don't necessarily disagree with you from the standpoint of they need to do a better job with number 42 and how they handle the legacy side of it. But I think what Roberto meant for the game, what he meant to the organization, what he meant to, you know, everything that he is.
Yeah.
Um, Even, I mean, the way that he passed away going on a humanitarian trip to e everything about this guy it transcends baseball to me, and that is when I believe a number should be retired across the sport, okay? I'm a hockey guy, so I'll bring it back to hockey. The only number in hockey that's retired across the board is Wayne Gretzky's, and it's not so much that Wayne Gretzky was this immaculate figure off the ice. I mean, he wasn't a bad guy or anything, but he wasn't the Roberto Clemente type off the ice. Um, but what he did and the numbers that he put up transcended the game of hockey. And so that number deserves to be honored in a special way. I think that Roberto Clemente transcends baseball. He is a cultural icon. He's not a baseball icon anymore, and because of that, I believe that he should be revered and respected and treated as such. And I don't think that it's right for anyone to wear number 21 because of what Roberto Clemente meant to society and culture as a whole, not just the game of baseball. And while I understand where you're coming from, to me, he means too much.
Yeah. I
Maybe
I
maybe I'm just
I
a
I
biased
I
Ginzer.
live in I am admitting I am coming from a place of fear with this. Of
Hey,
in
hey,
of
don't live in your fears.
Yeah, well, I am living in fear and just having a pretty low opinion of Major League Baseball and doing
Which
the
is
right
fair.
thing. And that bothers me. Like something as simple what the Pirates did Friday, where they had, I believe the number was 45 thereabouts, people, front office people, players, coaches, people who work for the team, in various roles.
Mhm.
They spent the morning and afternoon doing charitable acts,
Yeah.
and it was, yeah, they did it for Roberta. Like that's I think the type of thing that I would much rather see something like that instituted across Major League Baseball, of every team having some sort of grassroots organization or effort to help the community. I think that would go a lot more than just retiring the number, or have it be tied into that. I guess
Mhm.
I yeah. I don't know.
I do.
I'm more in favor of like everyone wear 21 for a day or something. I don't know. I get gun shy whenever it comes to is whenever Major League Baseball gets it both hands on a situation. It's like there's just I'm a little I've been hurt in the past.
Yeah. A buddy of mine sent me a photo today that he took from the stadium. He was sitting out in right field, and it was, where they had the 21 in the grass, and it was Aaron Judge standing in between the 2 and the 1, and you could see the Clemente wall like in the foreground of the photo. And just the way he framed it, and the way that, like, you have one of today's greats wearing number 21, standing right in between the 2 and the 1 with the Clemente wall, the 21-foot Clemente wall. That picture was just, I mean, it was a really, I'll ask him if I can borrow it from him or then tweet it out or something if anybody wants to take a look. And it just, to me, getting to see an organization like the Yankees, who are one of the most storied organizations in sports, being a part of honoring Roberto Clemente like that today in Pittsburgh was, I thought it was pretty special. I'm a moment guy, and today was a pretty cool moment in how they did that up.
Yeah, it was. Ryan's been commenting here. I want to just address this real fast here before we wrap up this segment. Ryan says if MLB screws it up, what he has done will remain, and that is very much true. But I look forward. I'm looking forward to this, and I don't want to dilute the story in any way because that's what's going to impact future generations. So
yeah,
I think that's just both sides of the coin here. And
I get where you're coming from.
I'm not. He's 100% right. Also, I think I don't know. I grew up in Pittsburgh. If you grow up in Pittsburgh and a baseball fan or a sports fan, you got to be taught the story, and the story is going to be much more about him, the humanitarian, as it is him, the player. And I'm sure retiring 21 has the best intentions. And if for something like that, I just get gun shy of it's a story that can't ever be at risk of being diluted.
I get it, man. I do genuinely understand where your concerns are because I've felt the same way about MLB with a lot of other things. So, not saying they're not warranted. I just think that, the good outweighs the bad in that situation.
We're going to take a break here a little bit. Whenever we come back, I'm asking Eddie about his hat.
Oh, boy.
Welcome back for the third segment. Eddie, what's up with the hat? For those of you who are consuming this as a podcast, it's Eddie's Cafe, and that's in Wisconsin?
Montana.
Montana. Oh, that's an MT.
Glacier Park, Glacier Park, Montana. My brother and his in-laws and his wife went to Montana for a week and a half, did the whole hiking and seeing nature, and they sent pictures back of mountain goats and rams and said that they had to end a hike short because of a bear. There was a bear sighting on one of the trails they were hiking, or so, just stuff that I'll never do because I'm not an outdoorsy type. I'm the biggest city boy that there is. I guess somewhere in Montana there is an Eddie's Cafe, and he thought it was hilarious and bought me the hat. So I figured, Eddie's Cafe, I'm Eddie. I'll rock it during the podcast today. Well, something different than my normal black snapback that I'm always wearing backwards. Figured I'd change it up today.
There you go. Well, I know.
So there's the story. There's the story behind the hat.
I'm not wearing a hat.
So shout out my brother John.
And you want to for the second, give the other shout out for your little cousin here.
Oh yeah. So for those of you who don't know, I help out with all of the film over at West Mifflin High School. My cousin Rodney has been the coach there for 5 years. His son Rico, his youngest son, is a senior offensive lineman, just committed to Bowling Green State University, and we'll be playing offensive line for them. They want him to be in the picture next year for playing time. So as a freshman, he's 6'5", 310, so I can't call him my little cousin anymore. I think he's 6'4", 6'5", something like that. He said 6'4", but I'm 6'4", and he's bigger than me now, so I'm not buying 6'4". He's a big kid, we'll put it that way. He's a big kid. He's benching 400. And my man is, he's got 10 scholarship offers, and he finally committed to a school. So I just want to shout out Rico and, and the rest of the West Mifflin team on a 48-8 win tonight. Finally got in the win column. So, yeah, that was the other shout out that we did in the first attempt at this show.
There we go. And, if you just keep the laptop plugged in the entire time, you don't have to do it a third time. So thank you so much for the patience, everyone who watched this live, and thank you for everyone who consumed it as a podcast after. We will talk again next week.
Yes, sir. Maybe the Pirates will be closer to a playoff spot.
I can't let that be the final word, Eddie. I'm sorry.